I thought it might be in my name, a shining legacy. I thought it might be in a goal for success to follow me. I thought it might be in a plan to sail across the sea, but I didn't find what I really need. I found it all when I lost everything and gave my life to serve a risen King. I found the truth that I've been searching for. I found it all when I found the Lord.
I'm letting go of all my ways that I think are best for me. I'm laying down all my ideas of what I think my life should be. I'm giving everything I am right at Jesus' feet. For it's here I find everything I need.
I found it all when I lost everything and gave my life to serve a risen King. I found the truth that I've been searching for. I found it all when I found the Lord. I found the truth that I've been searching for. I found it all when I found the Lord.
Yeah, I guess just up a little bit there, I guess, if you would. Well, I'm glad to be back with you. And Brother Carter, you teach today, or is that tomorrow? Tomorrow, okay. All right, I asked you to read the book there. I realize it's a short time. You may have not done it, but I'll tell you to help you out and fill in the blanks. How many got a chance of doing at least part of that? All right, good. That'll help you along today. Look at 2 Timothy, if you would. And thinking about you, you're so young, and this is a new world for you. And probably the first time in your life you've had checks, right? And enter into this financial world of your life. And the staff would certainly realize it's important to get a hold of this area in your life early so that this doesn't happen. Look at 2 Timothy chapter 2, and in verse number 24, and the servant of the Lord must not strive but be gentle. And I realized it was only because, as you read there in my little book, I had a mother who was a budgetarian. That means she squeezed the buffaloes off of the nickels. She was a conservative. And my dad was an innovator, Brother Carter. You know, he just tried anything and everything. And maybe, well, actually, he didn't consider the cost a whole lot. And our church got into little financial problems. And so my dad taught me how to be an investor. He taught me how to buy my first house. He taught me about the, that side of the financial area. And then mother would oftentimes come to my dad and say, "Now, Roy, can you afford this?" And Brother Carter. And so I had a mother that was lived by budget and very conservative, and I probably strayed to her side of the fence more than his. But my dad was able to help me out, as I said, buying my first house, buying my first car. And so I got on both sides of the fence. It was good. And so I've only been blessed of the Lord. I'm not anybody different. If I hadn't had good training, I'd probably be messed up financially. But look there at verse 24. Then notice there in verse 26, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil. So it's far better to never get in the snare of the devil. It's far better to never get in the trap than have to get out of the trap. It's far better to stay in church and stay right than to get out of church and mess your life up, then come back as a prodigal. Just far better. And so I feel like I've got a good, I believe this, the Lord told me, we'll see what happens. The Lord told me that at least one person is going to get their life changed about this area here. I know at least one. I'd hope more. Hopefully there'd be a man or a lady that just get a hold of this and you'd never get in debt in your life. And you could learn to stay, to be that way. And it never has been how much money you make. That is not a determining factor. A person that could save on $150 a week could also save on $1,500 a week. It is not the amount. Early in my life, whether my paycheck was, well, it was small. Even when it was small, it was always learn what it was, just to save a little bit. You know, if you can learn to save just a little bit. At our church, I was able to hand over to the next pastor a good reserve in our church, and just far better to live that life. I know we're to live a life by faith, but a preacher gets in financial indebtedness, he'll die earlier, even though he lives a life of faith. But notice there, I'd like for you not to get in the snare. All right, then look at Proverbs chapter 1, and I may have to sit down, and then as you've read and looked at it, I'll just kind of open it up to you. But notice there in Proverbs chapter 1 and verse number 23, my son, there are 23 times that Solomon is speaking and says, my son. He's trying to get his attention. In fact, if you look at Proverbs 1, the first thing he wants him to get a hold of is son. Beginning in the verse number 11, he said, don't run with the wrong crowd and make sure you listen to your parents. You know, that's the best way to start off right. Don't run with the wrong crowd and listen to your parents. If you can get that one thing down, if you go to the Carter, I guess y'all go to the jailhouses, right? You could go down to the jails and you'll ask them, how'd you end up here? And they'll always say, I got with the wrong what? Got with the wrong crowd. A wrong crowd will take us down every time. And how good it is that you can be in church today. But look at Proverbs chapter 22. I referenced this a couple of times. Proverbs 22. And you'll notice that I've said that many of these verses surround around the financial area of our life. A good name is rather be chosen than great riches. The poor, or rather the rich and the poor, meet together. Verse number 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old he will not depart from it. The rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower, that means if you get a loan, you become someone else's slave. And no man can serve two masters, and how sad it is when people get saved, and yet they've got another master. That's called the MasterCard. That's called they're in debt. I almost feel like asking you, but I'm not going to do it unless I want to do it. Do you have a credit card? Don't answer me that, but don't answer that. I hope you don't. I didn't get a credit card. I was 37 years old, and I'm glad I didn't. And I'd hope that some of you who do have a credit card, and maybe your parents let you have a credit card, fine. I'd hope that you'd realize that the best thing you could do right now is just get rid of that thing. Just get rid of it. It's far too easy to put out a credit card than to put out cold cash. It's just far too easy. All right, let's just review just a little bit here in the book. I'll just summate on. Usually when I go to churches, I'll take a Friday at least, sometimes the 2-night services, and do nothing but teach this. And here our time is limited. and teach it to the people, because I found out that people will really never be faithful givers if they can't get a hold of their finances personally. And it's wonderful to make a commitment to God, but it's another thing when you can't pay your bills. And then the Lord seems to slide out of the picture. But look at chapter 1. I'll just make a summary over this because I want to get down to you asking me some questions. But basically, you got to balance what comes in with what goes out. You tell me, can you have more going out than you got coming in financially? Okay? You can't spend more than you have. Back in my day, and Brother Carter's and some of us, you know, we would never purchase anything unless we could pay for it. I mean, just the principle. We didn't do it. But today you certainly can, and it's led to the enslavement of the world. But all right, look over if you would. You ought to, on page number 5, you ought to copy that, and you ought to start earning your life. And on the left side, basically what you got coming in. And on page number 5, basically what you got coming in, what you got going out. You don't have a lot of these things now in your life, but you need to copy that. If you'll live by that, it'll save your life. I mean, I'm just talking about something that really will save your life. All right, chapter number 2. One place you don't want to live is in debt. It's not a fun place. And before we know it, we can get heavily in debt. I have talked to people, and I'm just stood shocked how much in debt they are. I mean, literally shocked. And I said, how'd that ever happen? I don't know. Just happened. And they're bound, and they're bound for years. But there is a way out. And in fact, look at chapter number 3, that there is a way out. And look on page number 12. Look on page number 13. You ever heard repetition is the key to learning? Okay. All right. We're going to do repetition again. On page number 13A, get rid of what? Say it again. Get rid of your credit cards. One day you'll be glad you listened to a preacher tell you that. Get rid of your credit cards. The credit card industry, even though they write you sweet letters once a month, they're not your friend. And you say, oh, look at here, they like me so much they sent me a couple extra credit cards. They're not your friend. They want you in bondage. In fact, they don't want you to pay your bill because they want you to pay a late payment, and they want to tack on top of that up to 20% interest. The word interest in the Bible is the word what in the Old Testament? Usury. Very good, usury. And it means an illegal or unlawful amount. Now, in the Old Testament, they were allowed. There's nothing wrong with having a loan in life. You're going to have times that you're going to have a loan, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what makes it wrong is not being able to pay it or the interest rate that's in front of it. Notice D. Notice D under page number 13, where you got there number 4, and it's D. And this would relate more to adults that I give them a little bit of wiggle room. And that is, if you're going to have a credit card, do what? What do I say there? Very good, students. Leave it at home. Leave it at home. Why do you want to leave it at home? Because it forces me to go back to home and get the credit card. And time you get back home, maybe your brain will turn on. It forces me to go back home. Leave it at home. Just leave it at home. And then I talk about it relates to husband and wife and how they can have extra jobs and such like that. All right, look at chapter number 4. And the reason why I wanted you to read it, so you're a little bit up to this. Look in your Bible, if you would. Look at Proverbs 21. I know it's right there, but look at Proverbs 21. We're right close by it, and verse number 20. Proverbs 21:20. There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man what? So should you take your entire paycheck and spend it up? The Bible calls that a foolish man. I realize we have bills. We all have bills. but we ought not just spendeth it up. How many of you would really like to start a savings program in your life? Would you raise your hand? How many would really like to do that? Okay. Just start where you are. Start with something that's simple. If it's $5 a week or $5 a month, I don't care. It's the practice of getting in. At my office, I have a laptop, and after 2 or 3 years, I had the same password, and so I was having some problems. I had, changed my password, and I got to saying, "What in the world are you doing? What in the world are you doing?" And I don't want to over-exaggerate it, but I'd say out of 14 days, 10 of those days I put in the wrong password, the old password, and I go, you know why? Because I was in the habit, and I didn't even think about it. In fact, I'll tell you, my new password was 777, and that was my new one there. But when I go up there, I'd put the old one, and I'd kick myself. What are you doing? Why can't you do this? And the next day I'd do the same thing. You know why? I got in the habit. And I think I had 10 out of 14 days. Any of you ever done that? Okay, but anyway, I'd use that old password there for a couple of years, and I just got in the habit. And the truth of the matter is, what I'm talking about will become a habit to you. It'll become a habit of saying, we need to hold back. We need to get a little savings going. All right, and we talked about that there, and so let me just talk about, and then I'll see if you have any questions. Let me explain to you again on page number 16. We used $4,000 a month, and how much did we determine, which is point number 2, how much did we determine that we've got to have in our checking account to pay our monthly basic bills? $3,400. We added it up, my tithe, my insurance, my house payment, all these is $3,400 a month. And then I try to look ahead. How much am I going to go around McDonald's? How often am I going to get my hair cut? How often am I going to go to Walmart? How often am I going to have basics? And so just for illustration, we came up with how much per month. That's in cash. And when the $400 a month is up, I may say, well, I got to alter just a little bit next month. You have to do something like that. But that right there is the very key of it, because the $3,400 has got to be paid. There's no questions about it. It's got to be paid. Just a little bit of insight. Never, when you get older and you have a house, try to never let your housing payments, utilities, etc., be much over 30%. If you let it come up to 50%, there's no way you're ever going to get ahead. In fact, you're going to get behind. Shoot for around 30 to 35% of your housing, although you get dorms here, right? You get dorms here. So you got that $400 cash. You got to pay your bills on $3,400. It's only for an illustration. And then I'm going to save for a short term, which means I want to buy a new dress or a new suit, a new this, a new that. When my wife and I first got married, we didn't buy any furniture. Every stitch of furniture was basically given to us. Oh, we're going to get married, we're going to go to the store, we're going to buy all this furniture, we're going to put all this furniture in there. You don't want to do it that way. You're going to live off of love. Just go out and let, there'll be people to give it to you. Just get what you can. House that entire house. Don't try not to get any furniture, unless you can afford it, obviously. If you'll live this way while you're young, you'll enjoy financially when you get older in life. Or else you're going to be struggling all the days of your life. All right, what did I tell you about a car? You want to try to have what % down for your car? 50%. If you're going to buy a $2,000 car, that means I'm going to save $1,000, and I'm going to put that $1,000 down, and then I'm going to pay that $1,000 whenever. But I'm trying beyond that. I'm trying to save for the next car. You can really do that. If you put 1,000 down, and then be saving all the time for the next car, and your goal is to pay 100% on the next car. Now, that may not happen for 2 or 3 cars later. Another thing about young married couples, they think they have to have 2 cars to exist. You don't have to have 2 cars to exist. I'm telling you the good way. My wife and I, we didn't get a second car like 6 or 7 years later. And we had a little $6,000 Honda Civic without any air conditioning until the doctor, when Heather was born, told me I was going to have some air conditioning to get her home as a little baby. And so I went and got some air conditioning in the car. Someone said, I don't want to live that way. Well, you just won't enjoy it as well as I have. You just won't enjoy it as well as I have. All right, so a savings program, and I mentioned that there. And then, of course, last of all, don't forget you got to give to God. And you could never save for the future while you're robbing God in the present. And then I mentioned your goal. Look on page number 19. We didn't discuss much of that. If a person makes they want to try to save, a month's salary. If your month salary is $4,000, your first goal to be trying to save $4,000. Then you're going to try to save $8,000. Now, we're not saving to hoard. If you run your budget, one of these days your hot water heater is going to run out. Believe it or not, your tires are going to wear out. So when these things happen, I have money to take care of that. I'm not waiting till my car breaks down to be able to afford a car repair. I'm saving for the time that will happen in my life. And I know this is not deep, but in reality it's the simple things that people somehow don't get a hold of. All right, we're going to look at the fill in the blank there, but let's see if you have any questions, and I may sit down just for a moment if you would excuse me. And let's see who has any questions. If not, we'll go ahead with our little lessons from this booklet. Who wants to ask any questions thus far? Yes. Yes. Yeah, you're going to have to average it. You're just going to have to come up with an average. Just an average. People ask that often, even in reference to tithing and such, you got to come up with an average. All right, very good question. Who else? Yes. Say that again now. Yes.
Some weeks are busier than others.
Yes. Once again, you're going to have to come up with an average. Take 4 weeks and average. That's the best you can do because it will be inconsistent. Okay? Good question.
What's your thoughts on investing, like for instance, like a Roth IRA at a young age?
Yes, I didn't get on it because I didn't know if these young people were there yet. But yes, I think everybody ought to seek to establish a retirement program. As ministers, we could have exempted out of Social Security, and I've seen most of the time it didn't work out very well. And I think even the ministry that we ought to establish, and the earlier, the better. And obviously I didn't get off on investments and such like that, but that's where you'll grow into that. But you could get into a simple mutual fund with an IRA, and yes. I calculated, although I had the best of both worlds, I did get out of Social Security, but at the same time I had 40 quarters. So I was able to get the benefits in this and that and other. So it'd be far better to, yes, start earlier. And you'll be amazed how much it'll grow to. Now, are we talking about to be rich? We're not talking about to be rich. I mentioned last night that a man not only should take care of his wife as long as he lives, He ought to take care of his wife as long as she lives. And he ought to think ahead and make sure his wife is well covered for, so that when he is gone, she can marry somebody else and live happily ever after.
Personally, how much of your budget should be allocated to saving up in a Roth IRA or investments?
Well, once again, I guess I'm dealing with y'all. Y'all are just kind of basically trying to get by right now. I understand that. You know, it's kind of like a small church. You know, they're just trying to survive. It's totally different. But I would say, if you could, you know, even if it's small, even if it's 2%, really doesn't matter. You know, I think everybody can play with the percentages. I just think it's a matter of doing something. And you can have payroll deduction. Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, meaning you can automatically deduct from where you work in most places, and it can go directly into a bank account or into a retirement fund. That means you make $200 a week, whatever. You can say put $10 a week, and it directly goes and never touches your hands, and you're able to do it that simple. Yes.
Do you think it would be better, like, say, if we're upperclassmen closer to graduating, to wait until we graduated, or to start putting into a mutual fund? Or
well, I just think you're in college now, and you just need to try to get out of college. I think it's difficult now. You know, if you were young married and I was talking to you, I think it'd be totally different. Y'all want to get out of college someday, right? You don't want to spend 10 years here, do you? All right, who else? Who else? All right, if not, we'll look a little bit longer here. Look, and we'll come back to questions in a second. Look on the page number 33. As I went through this, I love the biblical precepts that I came up with. Dr. Carter, one of those over there, if you would, the biblical finance. On page number 33, number 3 there, God made man to work. There's nothing better, Ecclesiastes said, that for a man should eat and drink and he should make his soul enjoy. Look, I don't care if you're in the ministry or you're a carpenter. You'll enjoy what you're doing. And God has created every individual to enjoy what they do. I don't know if you got this or not, but I love the ministry. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I enjoy it. I love it. And God doesn't call everybody in the ministry, but if he has, you ought to enjoy that. But anyway, I like number 4 there. Jesus was the hardest working person to ever live on the face of the earth. He said, I must work. The works of him that sent me while it's day. The night cometh when no man can work. And Jesus said, I got to get everything I can out of this life. And I must be a hard worker. I'm so proud about your church and Brother Carter calling on Brother Parsons, because he's a hard-working man. I said it for the 3rd time. You don't call just whoever happens to be. You think these pulpit committees, again, they listen to them. They try to call the one that preached the best. Oh, what a mistake. What a mistake. You call the one you think is going to be. I saw it just a couple days ago, and I thought, wow. Jesus said, pray therefore the Lord of harvest shall send forth laborers. Look in the Strong's Concordance. That means a hard worker. That's who a pastor needs to pray for, is some hard workers, and the preaching will come. Number 6 on page number 34. Don't spend all you have. Page 34. Don't spend all you have. Verse 7. Write the vision and make it plain. Write your budget out. Number 7. Number 9 there on page 34. That's a good one if you spend less. Don't forget number 11 there. Money can be deceitful, and it can lead away. The love of money is the root of all evil. So I'm certainly not telling you. You understand that. I'm not trying to get you to become a millionaire. How many ever heard of Warren Buffett? Yeah, Warren Buffett, 3rd richest man in the world today. Several years ago, he gave away 2/3 of his income, $33 billion. And he said, I know there's a lot of ways to go to heaven, and certainly this must be one of them. how sad he was to have that much money. So I'm not saying go out and try to spend your life for money. Anyway, so money can be deceitful. Don't ever forget. I would suggest to the administration to consider, as I told Dr. Pitts, we have for years, it's like, did I go soul winning, did I do all this thing? We have for years, did I tithe? The college students. Question mark. Did I tithe? You'd be shocked sometimes our college students don't tithe. And sad to say is some of you are going to go out and pastor a church while you rob God all the days in college. That ain't going to work. Not going to work. God's not going to open the doors of heaven for you. Well, he looked back and said, you robbed me for 4 years. He said, you're cursed to begin with. And I don't need to put you in another church where you curse somebody else. So let's say amen. Every college student ought to tithe, right? Number 14 there. Very little is said about that, but we ought to pass it on to our children. I have learned in being a teacher of this for 35 years that now those who heard me when they were younger, now they teach their children. And passing that on, it's not passed on a whole lot. Number 15 there, I like it. There's 5 points to that. I like it, what Solomon said. Y'all look at those points. The more you have, the more you want. The more you have, the more you spend. The more you have, the more you worry about. The more you have, the more you lose. And last of all, the more you have, the more you leave behind. So it really ain't going to do you any good except for serving God with it. All right, look on page number 36. Now this will be the ultimate. Set a goal to live on 80% of your income. All right, let me explain. 10% goes where? All right. So somewhere between, 90% and 80%. I don't care if it's 89%. Live on 89% of your income. And then if you keep working at it, maybe you can live on 88% of your income. And I think, the Deuteronomy says about how they inherited the promised land. It said little by little. That's the Christian life. Little by little. Dr. Carter would tell you this ministry wasn't built in big leaps. It was little by little. Just a little here, a little there, a little there. And that's a great tool in the Christian life. Verse number 19 is a good one there. I like his biblical principles. Number 21 there. Little foxes spoil the vineyard. I mentioned there about a husband already. All right, let's look on page number 39. All right, let's see what you wrote down just a little bit. What you learned or what you saw there about establishing a budget. And it looked you square in the face. And I know you have this class taught here at your college, and maybe I could just be a reinforcement. But number B there, do I have a written? I had a pastor friend to look at me and he smiled and he said, well, it's in my mind. I said, well, it ain't good enough. You got to have it written. So how many of you learned that? You need to have a written budget, right? You got to stay on top of it. It's not just one time. You keep going back to it. You keep looking at it. You keep trying to improve it. Does anyone want to ask any question about basically page 39 on the budget? All right, look on page number 40 there. One place you don't want to live is in debt. And I realize it's not as applicable toward you young people, but, B and C, how much do you have that's secured and unsecured? Anyone want to ask a question? Okay. All right, page number 41 there, moving out of the city of debt. Look at D. I'll keep circling the fence. How many credit cards do I have? Did y'all write it down? Good. Yeah, you want to say something, ma'am? No, debit card. Once you spend it, you're halted. So, but it does make it. Yes. As only I tell you while you're young, if you're going to have a debit card, I'd personally handwrite it also. If I went and spent $10, I'd have my little notebook off the side, $10. Even though I know you're going to get a statement, but you need to keep up with that day by day. Meaning, let's look at here. A total secured debt is like your home and these things that have value. Okay, an unsecured debt is like loans and things like that you have. Credit card that's not paid off. Now, I assume they don't have to get a student loan to come here, right? Is that correct? You don't have to get a student loan, do you? You know, the average person, in fact, my dentist, I went to high school with, and I get to talk to him about going to dentistry, and he teaches actually in the University of Tennessee. And I said, what kind of student loan debt do they have to get to go to dental college? And he said, well, now it's around $200,000. And there's many a person starting their life off with a $50,000 to $100,000 student loan. It's not a student loan, it's called a stupid loan. And starting their life, y'all thank God you're not starting your life off with a $100,000 loan. You'll never get ahead of that. You'll never get ahead of that. Well, I guess unless Bernie Sanders forgives it all, they forgive everything. Okay, who else? Question? Yes.
What do you do if
if you need to get a car, if you need to get a motel?
For like, yeah, a car or a house, what about the credit score?
Yes.
For that.
Well, there is one disadvantage of, not building up your credit, and the only thing you could do is just for the purpose of go get a loan for $500 and pay it off the next day. I realize that is a difficulty. I realize some of the times with cars and things like that, but you're just going to have to put up cash or some other ways of doing it. For what little problems you have, you certainly got a lot more advantages on the other side. So seriously, if you needed to for your credit, you'd have to get a loan and pay it off, because I realize that is a problem. Yes.
So I've heard people say before about building up your credit score. What if you get a credit card and then you just buy one tank gas, pay it off, and then you just cut up the credit card after, so you don't.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. As long as people don't get used. Have all of you had in the mail an invitation for a credit card? Okay, you've had it there. Okay, so that comes. I'm not saying you couldn't do it like that. Yes, you could, and people do it like that. But I feel like I want to ask how many of you have credit cards. I'm holding back. Trying to be your friend, hoping that you get the message that's being said, because I'm sure from all the adults that are here to Dr. Carter, I'm sure we'd all be on the same page, would we not? Don't get a credit card when you're young. Write it down. I didn't get one. Write it down. Dr. Westmoreland lived a good life financially, but he didn't get a credit card till he was 37 years old. Write it down. 37 years old. And to be honest with you, it makes life so simple. It makes life so simple, but I'm glad I went through that time of telling myself. People say, oh, well, you ought to trust your kids. I don't even trust myself. And I don't trust myself with a credit card. And even after having it now for 31 years, I just know how easy it can be. I mean, it's easy. It's easy. And when you put that credit card out, it's the difference between putting the $25 out. It just means something. All right, who else? Yes, sir. Well, I think a person ought to start where they can start. We realize that once you drive a new car off the lot, it depreciates a whole lot. A car is a very depreciating item, meaning it's going down and down and down in value. Certainly if a person has the mechanical knowledge, I think it'd always be good to buy an older one and just keep it up yourself. and all of us are equipped like that. But I think it ought to be what a person can afford. And once again, you want to get to the place that you put 100% down. 100% down. You know, when a husband and wife get 2 cars, that's 2 insurance, 2 keep-ups, 2 expenses on gas. And so if you get married, just live on 1 car for a while. I know it can be difficult. It has been done. And just strive. You know, all this, I'm just asking you to work on it and think about it. All right, who else? All right, look on the page, getting out of the city of debt. And then savings. You know, once again, when you get older in your life, you could learn about investments and things like that. Number D there, unless you could come up with a better plan, I would advise my little plan. Cash on hand, checking, short-term, long-term savings. It all begins with not having a credit card. It all begins with cash on the hand. It all begins with paying your monthly bills through your checking. Then you got some cash on hand, and then you save, and you don't spend more than you have. Next page, 43, going on forward from there, I lay out how that you ought to strive for a 3-month savings. A 3-month savings. I advise that in churches also. Whatever the operating budget is, try to have 3 months and plus in that. The next page is regaining your sanity, about credit cards. And then chapter 7 there, page 45. Obviously, I don't want to bypass being a tither. All right, any of those questions you want to ask me? Yes, sir?
The sermon that you had written
Yes.
out, how it had mentioned bring your tithe once a week, the first day of the week. What if you get paid bi-weekly? Because personally, that's
Right.
how I get paid for my store bi-weekly. So I don't know, is that something that we,
Right, you would divide it up, meaning if you owe the Lord $200, let's make 2,000, whatever. Your tithe is $200 a month. I would divide it up into 50, 50, and 50. Now, this is just me. You know, upon the first day of the week, and every time they went to the house of the Lord, they brought a sacrifice. He said, don't come in without your hand, without a sacrifice to the Lord. And I've always believed, and I'm not against anyone at all, you know, in tithing once a month, you know, $2,200, you know, you give it on the 4th Sunday, whatever, not against that. But I just like to come to the house of God with a tithe, a sacrifice. Deuteronomy says every time you come to the house of God, you ought to be able to praise God for everything that he's given to you. And I think we do that with the tithe. And it's not against once a month, but I've just found that people tend to be more faithful if they give it every week. I'm not against it at all. I'm sure your pastors here will not be against it at all. But I just learned I'd rather give on the first day of the week, just like the Bible says. All right, who else? Good questions. All right, young people, you've been very good. I'll get some ice cream for you tomorrow night. All right. All right, I guess we'll be dismissed. Or Brother Carter, you want to come and dismiss us or tell us goodbye or whatever?